There's a phrase in Chinese, 做人, which, when roughly translated to English, means doing human, being human, acting human. However, the phrase is kind of incorrect when you translate it this way. For example, when you use the phrase in the context of chastisement of a kid, such as in a sentence, 你不知道怎么做人, it's a degrading insult that removes the humanity of the child. However, when you use the phrase in a context, such as the song 第一次做人, it becomes humanizing. It's a reminder that all of us, no matter how old, where we come from, skin tone, whatever, we're being human for the first time. We're going to make mistakes along the way. We're going to suffer. We're going to grieve. But in there is also happiness. And there will also be joy. There will also be love. There will also be people that you meet who will brighten every day of your life. And that's part of being human as well. I say all of this to say, this is my first time being human. This is what I've experienced. This is what I remember. This is who I am now. 这是我第一次做人. And I want to share it with all of you. Because I think there's valuable experience, valuable knowledge, valuable wisdom to what I've gone through. And in another way, this is my form of grieving. This is how I be human. This is how I do the act of being human. This is my act of foreign. To explain where I am now, I have to start at the earliest points in my life. I spent most of it in a suburb of the Bay Area of California. I wasn't born there, rather I was born in Minnesota, but my parents quickly moved there when I was young. Probably they were searching for a better life, whether that be a better job or living environment, I don't know, but that's where I landed, really. I learned the information that I wasn't born in California when I was in second grade, roughly, 7 years old. And it shocked me a little bit that I wasn't from here, that in some ways I was an intruder. I didn't even know what Minnesota was back then. Didn't even know that it was part of the United States. I went through this part of my life kind of knowing that and feeling a little alienated by it, along with a lot of other things that alienated me, such as my unique experience with gender dysphoria and how that manifested as dissociation for me. I went through most of this period of my life not fully present in myself. And when left to my own devices, I would often daydream of alternatives, whether that be the person taking a jog out the window, or, right before bed, in that time where you close your eyes and you don't have digital devices to distract you, back then at least. You dream of other worlds, you dream of being book characters, you dream of being someone else. And in this, I and decided to be a woman. I'd later understand what that meant for me, but at that time it was my little secret, my little thing that I did on my own time that I kept secret from everyone else, away from everyone else. Not even my own parents knew. My parents grew up in China, born in the mid-70s. They went through most of the Dengist economic revolution. Both of them studied hard, got into the best college in China, and moved to the US in hopes of a better future, I have to assume. A lot of that pressure to do better was put on me. I think my parents never fully healed from their trauma growing up. My mom later explained to me that as a kid she dreamed of doing research like Marie Curie. And she never got to do that. Instead, she went into industry and did work there, which she joked paid better than what my dad did, which was actually doing research. The failure to live the life you wanted as a kid, I think, is something that really stuck with her and something that she hoped I never had to experience. And I think that was put into how she taught me growing up about mathematics. My dad grew up in a more rural area in China. He said his motivation for studying was not having to farm crops again. Little did he know that he would come to America, have a little suburban house, have a backyard, where he'd plant his own crops and farm them occasionally. Growing up under them, I had a lot of pressure to do well. Not just because they were both very accomplished academically, going into the best university in China, etc., etc. But also just because I lived in an environment that was really pushing kids to their limit. The Bay Area is home to a lot of billionaires, which are, people who we regard with high status, people who we really treasure. Um, I say we loosely as I don't anymore. But it also means that the kids there have a lot of resources to push their education outside of the basic stuff that school gives, that, you know, extracurricular math classes, art classes, whatever the case might be. Kids can really push themselves there. And as a result, a lot of my life was spent being pushed, being shoved to do better, as I put it. I didn't have many friends at the time, so if you ask me then, I would say I had quite a few. The most notable few would be a kid who was my age, a few months older, and we had a lot of shared interests. Our parents were friends, and they played soccer together, so we both grew up playing soccer. We both loved Minecraft, Star Wars, Legos. I eventually, you know, grew out of some of them, and he changed too. And we don't hold bad blood per se, but we're just definitely more distant now. He was one of my few real friends back then, but even to him, I didn't open up emotionally too much. Another would be a girl, a few weeks older than me, and she was kind of like a twin sister to me. Not in necessarily the way she acted, but in how my brain perceived her and how I regarded her. Our parents were friends and they often played poker together, and when they would play poker, well, they'd leave the kids to do their own thing, and that's how we spent time together. Out of circumstance, really. The other important figures would be two siblings, one 6 years older than me, another 2 years younger than him, so 4 years older than me. The brother, the older one, was really, really, really smart. Still is. And I looked up to him because he was confident. When we spent time together, it was because our parents were playing cards. And so, while he would play video games and spend time in call with his friends from school or whatever the case might be, I'd watch him do that. Laugh, joke, have fun, be confident, be loud and boisterous. Something that I didn't really have at the time and I wouldn't have for a while. As for the sister, she was definitely still, in her being, but she was more private and reclusive and often spent time upstairs, a place that I sectioned off, considering that kind of the parents' area, private property. Finally, the last important character in terms of people near my age would be a girl my age, a few months older. She had short hair and engaged in more masculine things such as taekwondo and soccer, and as a result, I got a lot of gender envy from her. I felt like if I could be her, my parents would be a lot happier with who I was. And I could also be a lot happier with who I was. Compared to her, I was physically quite inept. I mean, the sport I played at the time was table tennis. Like, I think that says enough. Um, I've always been a little physically overweight, as is anyone in the US, really. The food here isn't that conducive, neither is the infrastructure. And my parents really shamed me about that. They would probably not say that they shamed me if you ask them, but they constantly push me to exercise, constantly push me to be fit, even though I didn't really want to exercise, that is. I didn't enjoy sports that much, and I still don't. And I never really understood what it meant to take care of my body, take care of myself. A lot of this is because of gender dysphoria. At least I believe so. You can take any myriad of beliefs towards my childhood, and there's probably at least some aspect of truth in it, but how I interpreted it was that I didn't care. I didn't care about how I looked. I didn't care about how I was physically. I didn't care much about how I was mentally. I say that as gender dysphoria because when I came out later in life, when I recognized what I was, I cared about those things, and I was healthier for it. Not just because my body was healthier, but also because my brain was healthier. I started washing my face, taking care of how I look, making sure that I present well to myself, giving myself that dignity that I lost and never had. Dysphoria for me also manifested itself in dissociation. I spent a lot of time daydreaming as a kid, whether that be bored in class or unable to fall asleep and trying to do something while I lie there in bed. And oftentimes I would dream of being a female character, whether that be a character from a book, or a person taking a stroll outside, or a character that I made up of my own. But I also just never fully felt confident, never fully felt present in any experiences that I had. Interacting with others kind of almost scared me because of that. Worried about fitting in, worried about being able to be one of them. A lot of this wasn't helped by the societal infrastructure that I lived in, the place that I lived in physically. Being a suburb, there really wasn't much to do despite the sidewalks and bike lanes. Going around, you know, you'd either find a restaurant, but you'd have to sit down and go through the entire process of ordering food and, you know, whole thing. A supermarket, which, sure, you can buy a pack of M&Ms, and then you'd have nothing to do again. Or, rarely, a boba shop. My house was on an island, which made getting off of it a 5-minute detour. The nearest boba shop was another 5 minutes away on top of that. And once you get your boba, you're shoved out the door. It was small and there weren't really many places to sit there. And while the boba was good, it's boba after all, there wasn't much to do. Across from my neighborhood was a park. I think it still is, I'm not 100% sure. However, there really wasn't any close crosswalk, so in order to get to it, you'd have to kind of do a C shape, and with that, you would, you know, lose about 10 minutes to having to walk the horizontal distance. Instead of just, you know, jaywalking and crossing the street. Which, I guess you could. Some people did, but it was scary. It's a long street, a little winding, but nonetheless, cars were going down at 35 miles per hour. If you're hit by one, you were pretty easily just dead. I mean, it's a car. And considering cars in America are especially oversized, that certainly didn't help to relieve my pressures. And so getting there was always really scary or a pain. Not to mention the fact that the play structure in it was in the back, making it kind of secluded and not present. Didn't find one until I was in middle school. As a kid, I played soccer, so, well, my parents played soccer and I got shoved into that a little bit, so the park was more used as a soccer field than actually, play structure for other children and me. Whenever I visit there, it's usually used by children for the baseball field. The one baseball field in town, if I remember correctly. Rarely do I see kids actually playing on the play structure in the back, or playing tennis with the adults. Not that they can't, just that the out-of-place nature of the park, how difficult it is to get there, and the fact that other kids don't really go out much makes it really unenticing to go to. Other parks are pretty similar to this. There's a park that I had to cross a bridge to get to, which was a lot smaller and made it a lot nicer to walk in, and less of, a soccer field, but still didn't really have many kids in it. And there was also a park near the lagoon that was a 30-minute walk to get to. You didn't have to cross any streets to get to it, thankfully, but it was still very far. And it certainly didn't help that I lived on the island, that added a 5-minute detour to it. The park is really pretty. A lot of people get their wedding photos there. But despite its prettiness, there's very few children in it, and it makes sense. It's for, teenagers, adults. A romantic scene for people to enjoy rather than a place for kids to have fun at. There was the rec center and the library, both of which were about 10 minutes farther from the park that I just mentioned, where people get their wedding photos at. None of those really had anything to do. The rec center had programs, sure, but none of those programs were really explicitly advertised or plastered over the town, and quite frankly, most of it was just empty rooms, as far as you can see. If there were empty rooms, they were rented out for private reasons, and as such, you weren't really allowed to go in. The library was probably the closest thing that we had to a third place, a place outside of school and outside of home that we could do anything at as children. Even then, it's still a library. You still have to be quiet, and the digital infrastructure was far behind what we had at home, probably due to lack of public investment. Not their fault, but still affected the fact that, well, kids don't really go there at all. And so naturally, I resorted to the indoors. Toys were commonplace as a kid, such as Lego. I eventually found video games, such as the Xbox 360's Minecraft and other things in that collection. And eventually I moved to the computer, where I found things like Discord. It was really in these environments that I was able to enjoy myself. A lot of trans people will talk about character selection and how they all wanted to be a woman. And that certainly was the case for me. I talked about how I daydream, and it makes sense that I would go into the games, but I never got to experience that. My mind, given the patriarchal society that we live in and the gender norms that Chinese culture places on you, my brain just forced myself into male characters and beings. none of which I really enjoyed. Despite that, I still found home in digital society. Playing Minecraft really helped just being someone in the midst of many, lost amongst the sauce, so to speak. I was no longer someone special. No longer a talented kid who could get straight A's, no longer a kid suffering from mental health issues such as anxiety. Just an animal. Or an agglomeration of colors. Or a human mob, hybrid. Anything worked, really. I didn't really have many friends as a kid. If you asked me at the time, I'd say I did, but looking back, I can tell that I never was able to open up to any of them at all. The important characters for my story would be two siblings, one of them 6 years older than me, and one of them 4 years older than me. The 6 year older than me, the brother, was kind of my role model. He was confident, exuberant, and when I met him, when I would spend time with him, as our parents would play cards and leave us to do our own thing, he would often be on call with his other friends and enjoying his time. And I found that difficult on my own or with others, and I looked up to that. The other sibling was more private and reclusive and didn't really impact much of my time growing up. She becomes important later on, though. I experienced my first bout of gender envy from a girl who was my age in my class, and she was a lot more masculine than the other girls. Shorter hair, did soccer, taekwondo, things that we wouldn't really attribute to women, to girls. I thought that if I could be her, I would be a lot happier in life. My parents would be more fulfilled, and I would be more physically fit, and I'd have good academics on top of that, while also being more comfortable in my own body. That allowed me to do a lot of things that weren't great. I don't want to go over them here, per se, but I do regret some of the actions I took that time, during my time with her. Very toxic masculinity as behavior, we'll just say. Most of my time in elementary school was alright. I don't remember much of it other than not really feeling like I was part of the group fully, despite being tolerated, and having decent grades by my parents' standards. Probably by a lot of other parents' standards, it would be actually a lot better. Middle school was really what hit the most, however. My parents always pushed me to do a lot of extracurriculars, such as piano, such as table tennis, such as math, and they used the brother that I talked about, the one who was 6 years older than me, to really use as a kind of person to go by, so to speak. Do the math and get straight A's, and here's all the things that you need to do to be just like him. This led me to feel pressured into doing math, into doing piano, into doing all these things, despite not really wanting to. If you ask me how I would live my life, if you ask me, oh, how should I, like if I could control every aspect, how would I have done things? I probably would have stopped doing a lot of these things a lot earlier than I did. My parents were constantly pushing me in all of these things. 45 minutes for piano, 2 hours for maths, an hour for table tennis, maybe two, maybe three, maybe four. And all of these would have to be done before playing video games. And sure, I stopped. I cut corners. I didn't do the full 45 minutes every time for piano or whatever. But I never really wanted to. My interest was never fully there. Math was the one thing that I stayed the longest on, and that's just because I enjoy puzzles. If you look at some of my most played games today, it's puzzle games. Sudoku, Balatro. Minecraft's my most played game by far, but how I play it is still a puzzle game. What's the most efficient way to get full armor? How can I beat the dragon the fastest? How can I reach the world border the fastest? How can I get all advancements the fastest? Math scratched that itch for me back then. That problem solving itch. I don't know if my parents mistook this for genuine curiosity and genuine interest, or if they knew deep down that this was rather performative and that I wasn't really into it, but they pressured me into going. They blah. They pressured me into doing math competitions, into doing table tennis competitions, even though I never really wanted to. I was content to just do math problems and figure them out and feel the joy of solving a tough question. I didn't care about statistics such as, grades or how well I scored on the AMC. But nonetheless, I did them. How can you not? You're a kid. The parents have the food, the parents have the money, the parents have everything, and they often talk about, oh, we're spending $60 per private lesson with a coach for table tennis. Oh, here's $300 spent on another math class for you. You don't want to do them, but you can't help but do them. You try to be as efficient as possible with every dollar that is used on you. But, it's not as efficient as it could have been. In middle school, a lot of my friends drifted away. The people who I spent time around, who tolerated me, kind of decided to spend time with others, and I don't blame them. I wasn't interesting as a kid per se, and neither was I an amazing friend compared to other people. But it left me alone. It left me a loner. And as issues mount, my anxiety, my gender dysphoria, my lonesomeness, my ineptitude for being physically fit, my insufficiency in academics, my um, lack of self-confidence completely and utterly. I fell into a hole of depression. A lot of this time I spent thinking it would just be better to not be here, to be dead. And I tried many times over. A few times in middle school. Took a break when I found some friends to do card games and me bring cards to school. But as pandemic rolled around and as people drifted apart again, I fell into it again. More. This time my parents being at home able to consistently pressure me about my academics, which weren't doing amazing because, well, traditional schooling has never been my strong suit. And neither was distance learning. But also staying inside all day and playing video games and not being productive, such as doing research into COVID and helping on the front lines as if a kid going to high school should do that. I broke, and I never really fixed myself for a while in that time. I'd only really find myself when I went back to school in 2021, early 2022, actually, I think. I forget. It was the end of ninth grade, and my school opened up for hybrid learning, where some kids could go into the physical classrooms, and despite still being on Zoom classes, at least you were there physically with other people. It certainly helped, but it wasn't great. Spending time away from people that, spending time away from my parents definitely helped my mental health. I connected with other kids a lot better when I wasn't frustrated at the fact that they were able to play video games and my parents were constantly looking over my shoulder with a camera attached to my screen. But I didn't really feel to myself either. I always buried my nose in a computer, looking at YouTube videos or whatever else, and I never really enjoyed being in classes. Still because of the gender dysphoria at the time, but also because the classes weren't amazing. I'd only really find myself in late 2022. I joined a robotics team in the 10th grade, and due to poor team infrastructure, I, as a rookie, took up a huge burden on my shoulders, and I was able to accomplish, well, completion, so to speak. It wasn't a perfect build. My part of the robot wasn't, amazingly polished compared to some of the other kids who had more experience and were actual veterans and knew how to navigate everything. But considering my lack of experience, I was pretty proud of myself. And I was happy about it. Going into 11th grade, I rejoined the robotics team, reassigned my membership, so to speak, and I enlisted to help teach the new kids how to design parts of a robot. Things broke apart with me and my coworker, so to speak. He believed in a more online, more digital form of education using the drawing software, CAD, whereas I believe in a more physical approach, prototyping and using reality as a supercomputer. With the irreconcilable differences, I stepped back, resigned, and I cried. I decided to jump off the balcony of our school, the second layer, the railing. I felt like no one in the world really cared if I was there. My parents certainly didn't really have friends that I could talk to too well. And the best thing I was at was video games, really. Despite, entering Amy being top 2.5 or 5% in math in America or whatever. And during lunch, a friend of mine came up to me, a true friend, and she talked me out of it. She was there to comfort me, let me cry on her shoulder, and I started using a higher pitched voice in that conversation that I had with her. When I was later called into the counselor's office, I continued using the voice. And while it's definitely not as refined as you hear it now today, it was right, so to speak. It fit. And that broke my shell. Other things led up to that point. I joined a Discord server of a former Minecrafter. He's out of the community now due to reasons I don't want to get into. And he had a pronoun selector, and I found there the obvious he, him, she, her. But along with that, they, them, which I knew about non-binary people, and I wasn't too surprised about it, but still a little shocked. Along with CSM and Faye Fair, the two neopronouns. I looked more into it and found more into Faye Fair as a pronoun set and really enjoyed it. And that's what I use today. I'm fine with she, her, or they, them. It's just, Faye Fair is my favorite. Coming out was a process. I wanted to originally keep it online. I wasn't fully sure myself, but when some of my IRL friends noticed that my profile changed on Discord, I decided, you know what? Let's full send this. I'm not an estrogen. I'm not in puberty blockers. Still not. I can go back if I want to. Let's try it out. I didn't come out to my parents for a really long time. A lot of my writings at that point were definitely inspired by my coming out. But the only real time my parents learned about it was when the school outed me. I was using my preferred name in school. They changed it in the system and to an automated message to my parents. I used my preferred name instead of my dead name, and my parents didn't give me too much shit about it at that time, but well, they would give me a lot more shit later on in life. My mental health really improved after coming out. I started taking better care of myself, as I mentioned before, and while I did spend more time by myself, I spent that time with myself, healing, meditation, thinking, enjoying the wind and the sun. I started to regain some of the dignity that comes with being human, that comes with being born as a human being. I learned how to be graceful, how to carry myself with grace, with dignity, with elegance. I started blooming. I went into college in Massachusetts. I explored a lot of other schools, and as a kid, I really wanted to go into Stanford, but didn't get in. Unfortunate, but I don't really care anymore. And Massachusetts definitely is on the other side of the country. After graduating high school, my parents looked at my graduation card and said, "Thank God they didn't use that fake name." Broke me for a few weeks, but a friend got me out of it. I started eating again, and I found new friends online. Going into my new school, going into college, I bought dresses. I bought bras. I bought, girly things. All of which I have today. Not all, but we do our best. And when fall break rolled around, my parents wanted me to come back to California. This was the worst week of my life. I had a fever going into it. I was really sick and I didn't want to fly, but they pressured me nonetheless, and considering they paid for the tuition, I didn't really want to put myself at risk. My mistake was going back in girl clothes, being comfortable in myself and being happy. They looked at me when I came into the airport. Clearly weren't happy about it, but hid it nonetheless. And on Monday, they told me that they would cut my hair. The last haircut I had before then was 2 years ago. Right after I came out to my friends, my parents forced me to get a haircut because I was going to a robotics competition soon and they didn't want me looking terrible. Terrible in their words, not mine. My parents claimed that this haircut was because my grandpa had a surgery that day, had an operation, or was going to, and it would help him to see his grandchild happy. I stalled for as long as I could, but nonetheless, the hair got cut, and they had me call my grandparents, and I put on the best fake smile that I could, and I faced the camera. The day after, they wanted to go have fun, but that's in their words. They wanted to go to Alcatraz, but I didn't want to. They didn't tell me that we were going to Alcatraz, of course, but found out eventually. The reason that I didn't want to go to Alcatraz was number one, I had my haircut the other day, and I really did not enjoy how I presented physically. But number two, because I knew about the people who escaped Alcatraz, and ever since I read that story back in 5th grade or 4th grade, I had anxiety about the place. That the best criminals still couldn't be held by the best prison in the world at the time. And obviously, I understand more about how criminals are nowadays, but nonetheless, that inkling stayed with me. Later, I would write in my bedroom on the walls, "Welcome to Alcatraz," because my room would be my prison. I didn't want to leave it because I didn't want to show the world what I looked like. I didn't want to leave it into the rest of the house because I didn't like my parents that much, and quite frankly, the only reason why I went down was for food. On Friday night, my parents came into my room and said that they were going to lock up my girl clothes, that they were going to take it away. I was able to negotiate them to put it in fingerprint bags. They didn't put all of it in there, but they put some of it and filled the rest with boy clothes. Disgusting. I was supposed to fly Saturday night back to college, but being mute and not wanting to talk to my parents, they didn't let me and had me fly on Sunday evening with them. There's a lot of detail about this week that I don't really want to go into too much verbally. It scares me to talk about it still. There's a document in the description that has a write-in piece that I did when I was thinking about this week later on in my life. It goes into a lot more detail about how I felt. And I think encapsulates what it means to be trans and to have your parents force you through conversion therapy. And even though I definitely didn't have the strongest bond with my parents, it was something. And now it's nothing. Now it's gone. I had to go back to California for winter break. I don't want to talk about that too much. Part of it was because I was consistently dissociating. The place gave me a stress response because I was still traumatized by what happened during fall break. I went back in nothing more than a backpack, and in my backpack I stored a cardigan and a headband, two pieces of girl clothing that I could keep to myself, that I could hold on to. They were stripped from me, and later the Wi-Fi in the house was cut, and I had to go to the library to stream, which was my kind of thing to keep me sane, or to talk to my friends, most of which were online on Discord and not in California. I'm here now, in Canada. I'm living with my girlfriend for this month. Until, once it ends, I'm flying back to America, moving into an apartment with a friend, as me and my girlfriend continue to fix my life, and hers to an extent, and figure out a way to have me stay more permanently in Canada. I'm not fully healed from the experience. I don't know if I ever will be. There's nights where, whether in the shower or in bed, I still think about that week. What life could have been like without it. There's a piece that I wrote from before that week. I'll link it to it in the description, but I look back upon so fondly and I consider my best work because it's so joyous and bountiful. And it's not that I'm not happy now. I certainly have things to be happy about, and I'm happy about them every day, but it's like Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games. My name is Katniss Everdeen. Why am I not dead? I should be dead. The world would be a lot better if I were dead. I don't know who's going to watch this video. I don't know who you might be, what views you might have. I just know that you are being a human for the first time. So am I. This is experiences that I have. This is what I have to give to you. And I can only hope that you treat me with dignity, with grace, with peace. To you I say, I hope you don't experience what I have. I hope you never have your dignity stripped from you, your grace stripped from you. I hope that in your first time being human, you can be a human all the way through, from day one to day null, from the day you're born to the day you die. And that you never have to experience what I experienced, to have that stripped away from you, to have that taken away. And there are some of you who have already experienced that when you see this video, when you listen to this video, that you have gone through similar things that, to mine. Reach out to me. My Discord's in the description. I am a little careful about who I friend because I don't want to talk to my parents per se, but I'm willing to be in commiseration, so to speak, with you. We might grieve different, but we are united in grief. To my friends who might see this video, who probably will see this video because I'll send it to them. Hey. Thank you. No matter who you are, whether that's a friend from when I was a kid to a friend with me now, you're part of the reason why I'm here. You're part of the reason why I get to spend time with my girlfriend in Canada, why I get to spend time with you, whether that be online or in person, why I get to spend time with people who I love and enjoy. You got me here. Every single one of you. Thank you for that. I owe the world to you. Finally, to my parents, who will eventually see this video. Fuck off. That's it. Fuck off. I don't want your money. I don't want your food, your shelter, your hospitality. You've shown in every bit of my life that you don't deserve me, that you don't deserve my grace and dignity, and that you have always treated me as a trophy, a sculpture for you to sculpt, a dog for you to show off about how well you trained it to sit. Thank you for the food, water, and shelter that you provided. For the 18 years of my life, or however long, I'd rather be homeless than continue to use your money, your food, your water, your shelter. I'm happier than ever without you. Now fuck off. Finally, to people of power, whether that be a politician or a billionaire. I don't know if you'll see this video. Well, you're listening to my words, so you have. Do your best to make sure that no one else, in their first time being human, has to be like me. I am not the only person who has suffered, who has survived conversion therapy. There are so many others who are like me. Eden Knight, who died by her own hand, I think 2 years ago. Might have been one. Because her medication, her estrogen, was stripped from her. Leela Alcorn, roughly 10 years ago, a trans youth who took her own life because her parents forced her through conversion therapy, and she never believed that she could have a better life. And so many more. Why am I talking to you? You're all associates of Epstein anyways. But a few good ones out there, I guess. Do your best. I believe in you. It's the only thing I can do, really. I mentioned that I stream. I do it on Twitch. The username is AetherCallinAngel. I used to stream mainly speedrunning Minecraft and Balatro, but I might try other things now. And I've been trying streaming recently, getting back into it. Doing some no-mic streams to get over my anxiety. I might try and mic stream again. I don't know. After recording this video, I probably will. I hope I can see you there. that if you choose, you can support me. Give me the ad revenue, give me the subs. But as long as you're there and you're enjoying what I do, I think that's good enough for me. I've done a lot of stuff in my life. Not a lot of it has been showcased in this video because, frankly, it's not important to what I want to mainly address, which was the trauma that I experienced. But nonetheless, I'm proud of a lot of them. And I'll continue to be proud of what I will do in the future and what I have done in the past. Because that's a dignity I'm giving myself. That's a grace I'm giving myself. I've only been human for 3 years now. For the other 16, however long years, I tried, and I failed. But I'm here, and I'm happy. Thank you. Because you're also the reason why I'm here.